Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Passages from the Srimad Bhagavata Gita were also read aloud to remind those present that the natural forests were blessed and an intrinsic part of India's spiritual heritage.
Sunderlal Bahuguna ji, Vegetarian, A Life of Dedication to the Environment.
Parts 1 of 2. Continue watching to find out more.
That you search inside yourself.
No to vegan, because it's only the animal people who suffer in pain, not you. Well, you will soon.
आप कैसे हैं? Beloved viewers, I just asked how are you in Hindi, one of the official languages of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. I'm Sahina. With joy and admiration, the sincere residents of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands wish that you may continuously thrive in God's wisdom and divine embrace. We are delighted to have you join us for part 1 of the 2-part series entitled Sunderlal Bahuguna Ji, Vegetarian, a life of dedication to the environment. Sunderlal Bahuguna is known primarily as the spokesperson of the Chipko environmental movement. Chipko actively resisted the systematic deforestation of Indian rural woodlands, often confronting powerful corporations in peaceful resistance to prevent the destruction of wilderness areas. Sunderlal Bahuguna gained international attention in the early 1990s by leading an impassioned and unrelenting campaign of opposition to the construction of the hydroelectric Tehri Dam in the Himalayan foothills in Uttarakhand. Sunderlal Bahuguna's life is a model of selfless dedication to environmental and social causes which he was involved in from an early age. Initially inspired to promote social equality within India's then rigid caste system, he later became a devotee of the Gandhian principle of nonviolence and drive to achieve self-determination from Britain. He then became a member of parliament in the newly independent nation and, together with his wife Bimla Vain, gave a voice to the often neglected needs of the villagers in India. Their actions eventually saw the establishment of the now legendary grassroots movement that is wholeheartedly dedicated to actively promoting environmental awareness. Sunderlal Bahuguna was a villager himself, born in 1927 amongst the sprawling terraced fields of Maroda, a peaceful rural community in Uttarakhand, northern India. The small village is still steeped in ancient ways, and the beautiful fir, sal, and oak trees that dot the landscape provide shade for humans and oxen people alike. Sunderlal Bahuguna's family was relatively prosperous. Life was not hard for aristocratic Brahmins, and from a very early age, Sunderlal Bahuguna perceived the social injustices around him. Observing his mother's daily routine brought home to him the inequality expressed toward women. This was a social trait embedded within the culture, and he vowed that one day he would stop this deeply unfair treatment of Indian women as well as those considered untouchable by society. In 1940, the nationalist movement was steadily rising in India, and one day, Sunderlal Bahuguna and a group of friends observed a man walking toward them with a large box. He stopped before the expectant group of teens, and from the box he presented them with his non-violent tool of activism, a charkha or spinning wheel, which was banned at the time. The man was Sridev Suman, a disciple of Mahatma Gandhi. Sridev Suman was actively supporting the return of power to the people by giving the Indian people back their inherent right to make their own clothes. Sridev Suman also included fasting in his form of activism. Sunderlal Bahuguna was deeply impressed and they became friends. Mr. Bahuguna remained committed to the principles of peaceful resolution for the remainder of his life.
Vegan, cause we can't be a killer.
Let's take a moment to hug a nearby tree. We will be right back here on Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to Sunderlal Bahuguna Ji, Vegetarian, a life of dedication to the environment, part 1 of 2. By age 13, Sunderlal Bahuguna had already been politically active for several years, driven by his urge to bring about social reform. When colonial rule in India drew to a close in 1947, he was a member of the newly formed Constituent Assembly and a representative of the Congress Party of Uttar Pradesh. During these years, he met another Gandhian activist, Vimla Ben, who had been lobbying the government of the newly established Independent Republic of India for the education of women in rural villages. This immediately resonated with his own sentiments. Over time, Bimla Vain convinced Mr. Bahuguna of the effectiveness of being a grassroots activist. In 1956, she agreed to marry him on the condition that he abandon his political career and that they would then live amongst the rural people of the mountainous and remote areas of Uttarakhand, where they could bring improved welfare to the villages more directly. Their first task was to establish an ashram at Silyara village. Although the ashram was based on spiritual principles, it became more like a community center where local people could drop in and interact with others about rural issues. Troubles such as alcohol abuse in families, women's inequality, and the Indian caste social system were addressed, along with environmental problems, which soon became an increasingly prevalent topic. Local women were particularly concerned about road building projects in the area that saw deforestation in the mountains, resulting in soil erosion and landslides. In 1970, after a particularly devastating flood, the connection between clearing trees and the disasters were impossible to ignore. Out of these concerns, the Chipko movement was born. The name Chipko means to hug in Hindi, referring to how the villagers, mostly women, took to embracing or clinging to the trees when workers came to clear the forest. The very first incident took place in April 1973 in the upper Alaknanda Valley. When asked what prompted him to lead the Chipko movement, Sunderlal Bahuguna replied,
मैंने 1956 में राजनीति छोड़ दी और हम अपनी पत्नी के साथ आश्रम स्थापित करके गरीब लोगों के साथ रह रहे थे। मैंने यह पता लगाने की कोशिश की कि इन लोगों की गरीबी के कारण क्या है। यह मिट्टी के कटाव, जल स्रोतों के सूखने और वनों की कटाई के कारण था। हमारे आंदोलन में गांव की महिलाएं आगे आई। हमारे क्षेत्र में महिलाएं हमारे सामाजिक और आर्थिक जीवन की रीढ़ है। मिट्टी के कटाव के कारण पुरुषों को अपनी आजीविका के लिए मैदानों में आना पड़ा और महिलाएं पीछे रह गई। परिवार चलाने का सारा भार उन्हीं के कंधों पर आ गया। उन्हें चारा, जलाऊ लकड़ी, पानी सब कुछ इकट्ठा करना था। इससे पहले हमने निषेध आंदोलन चलाया था। इसने हमें महिलाओं को संगठित करने में मदद की।
The Chipko slogan became "Ecology is permanent economy," and Sunderlal Bahuguna, with his political experience, became the movement's spokesperson. A year later, Sunderlal Bahuguna fasted for 2 weeks, his first of many, as the group chanted passages from the Bhagavad Gita. Hundreds of people, the majority of them women, attached themselves to tree trunks with sacred threads. Passages from the Srimad Bhagavata Katha were also read aloud to remind those present that the natural forests were blessed and an intrinsic part of India's spiritual heritage. In Conversations, one of India's most widely viewed talk shows, invited Sunderlal Bahuguna to answer questions of acclaimed host Rajiv Mehrotra.
There is difference between fast and hunger strike. Those who are frustrated, they go on hunger strike. But those who are believers, who believe in the supreme power, they pray to God. And fast is prayer to God.
But when the objective of that fast or that prayer is not fulfilled, do you feel some sense of disappointment?
No, never. Because a believer is never disappointed. He will think that there is something lacking in my prayers. So, more and more devotion. The philosophy of fast is that you search inside yourself and you surrender yourself to the supreme power. Now I am in your hands, and if there is anything lacking inside me, give me light. So Gandhiji was doing same thing. And we know India is a spiritual country. Since long, long ago, we have a very old history in which the saints, the tapasvis, they were regarded superior to the material man.
We are grateful for the caring actions of Sunderlal Bahuguna ji and others who work tirelessly to better the lives of others, human and animal people, and to save our planet. Please be vegan and make peace on earth.
One of the things you're bound to hear is that animal protein is one of the most toxic nutrients of all that can be considered. Dr. T. Colin Campbell, vegan.
Noble viewers, it's been a pleasure to have your company today. Join us again on Sunday, January 9th for part 2 of Sunderlal Bahuguna ji, Vegetarian, a life of dedication to the environment. May heaven's grace light your path to spiritual upliftment every step of the way.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/MOS.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule et suprememastertv.com/MOS.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule y suprememastertv.com/MOS.
Chương trình của chúng tôi cung ứng nhiều ngôn ngữ. Xin xem suprememastertv.com/schedule và suprememastertv.com/MOS.